Father, please guide my heart and my mouth and let this be a testimony to what you can bring us out of, and not of ourselves, lest any man should boast. Amen. I'm gonna put my testimony on here today. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible, but I don't know if I can. I just got to start and just go with it. What God puts in my heart and what I need to declare, and what Christ can bring us out of. I don't believe I've had the roughest life, but I believe my life's probably been a little bit more than most, but mostly out of my own doing, but that's neither here nor there. And I also want to tell you that no matter what we've done, no matter where we have been or what we've come through, we can all have salvation, and that's at the very least. We can all have salvation through what Christ done for us, not through what we do, but what we receive, what we accept, and what He's already done and accomplished. Christ has already conquered. We just have to be patient and make sure that we are trying to change, trying to do the right thing, and wait on Him and stand up in defense of the truth, justice, and for each other. And that's all I'll say before I get started. And also I wanted to just do something, but Psalm 119 says, "Thy testimonies are also my delight and my counselors." So I live in southeast Oklahoma. It's a very, very small place. It's a blip on a radar. I think it's about 5,000 people. I would probably think it's probably been that way for decades. I grew up, middle class. Father worked shift work. Mother worked waitressing and other things, and my earliest memories are just doing the going to school and playing sports. And I had a friend that me and him we were tied at the hip. And I'm going to try to keep from saying names or anything out of respect for other people and for other reasons, but I think what I remember of it is that he fell out of a car and died. And this is like kindergarten or first grade or something. And I really don't remember that much about it or how I felt or how I took it, but I remember that he died. And so I had another friend that me and him was kind of like that, and I went on through school, like that. And I was always a very observant kid, and I think that my parents kind of seen that. I never really, got out of line or anything. You really hardly ever knew I was there. But I guess I can't keep from saying anything negative without getting all the gist of it. But there were problems in the home, and if it wasn't for my brother, he was 6 years older than me. He was born in 1976. Yeah, he was 6 years older than me. There probably would have been some subtractions, because my brother was a godsend and a lot of that stuff. So in around 90, we moved to a little town in North Texas. My mother and father got divorced, she got remarried, and we were, you know, my stepfather was terrific. He was great to us. Um, you know, like I said, we were, you know, he had a really decent job on an army base, and my mother was a manager of a McDonald's. And it's actually that's actually a better paying job than you think, back then. And we you know, it was I had a middle sister. She's 4 years older than my brother. And then at about 94 or 95, I lost my grandfather, and then not long after that, I lost my brother. And that I'm still to this day, I was around 14 or 15, so my brother was killed before he was 18, and I'll stand on it till the day I die that that's what destroyed my family. It destroyed my mother. I know that. But it destroyed her and my stepfather's marriage. I know it did. And he was, I guess I just, he was strangled in a hotel room, is a story that I was told, before he was 18. And they dumped his body in a field, and a farmer found him, and the head was just in pieces. And it took a while to find him because we didn't know where he was. And eventually they found him, and that's where they found him. And my mama just lost it. And I'd always, you know, like I said, I always was really, a basic kid, not overly immature, but not grown either. But that caused me to kind of turned me into a man. The needing to step up as a man, because I used to have to, she'd go into a different world and think that he was still alive, and I guess just mentally and emotionally I had to start changing. And I got suckers and a pop. I don't know how to change these videos, so I just got to keep it running. And then a month or 2 months after that, one of my stepfather's brothers took his own life. And I'm not gonna touch on that because that wasn't on my side of the street. So, but he was like my dad, and he killed himself with a gun. And he was really like, I loved him. He was like my dad. My dad's, or no, he was my dad. He was not like my dad. He was my dad in a way, not out of disrespect, because my dad's he doesn't have much compassion, and he's very a matter of fact. And my dad can make you feel about that big, and that's pushing it. But that's just who he is. That's not a slight at anybody. That's just who he is. So, not long after that, my mother discovered the internet. Started taking these trips. And the whole time my stepfather's asking me, what's happening? Blood's thicker than water. And I feel bad about it now. But I said, I don't know. And I knew, but I didn't. I lied. I wasn't honest. And And then eventually she packed her stuff and left, and I said, man, I want to finish school. I got sports next year. I said I want to get through my last year. I got all my sports and stuff coming up, and I said I want to finish my last year. She said, well, come on. And then eventually, like, I was kind of, I had places to go, but I was starting to kind of drift off and kind of just needing a valve, and started doing things I shouldn't have been doing. But I mean, not in a certain sense, not really out of hand, but just, not anything that I'd want my kid to do. But so I eventually the utilities ended up getting shut off at the house. I was living there by myself, and going to school and driving a truck and just acting grown, And eventually the utilities got cut off of the house. I said, well, what am I going to do now? So I moved in with a friend, and I was trying to tough it out, and my dad was paying child support still, so I was just getting them and just cashing them, and that was my money. When you're 16, $270 is a fortune. And I was trying to slip the ladies some money. I was staying with, my friend's mom, and they had a really big house and was like the nicest people ever. So it wasn't, there might have been people living there that she didn't know about. It was that they were that nice of people. Eventually, I think I just started feeling guilty, and I said, well, I just gotta leave. I'm being a burden on people. So I went up to where my mother was, and this whole different thing, this whole different universe. And my senior class, if I would have graduated, would have like 35 people in it, maybe. I went to a school that had 970 something people in the senior class. When they rolled out the senior picture, they had to do it in a scroll. It was this freaking long. And then when you looked at yourself, you were like, tiny, tiny, tiny spot. And people up there, they were all right, but it was just, people up there are just, I don't think they mean it. They're kind of buttholes, but I don't think they mean it, They're not very down to earth. And, and I mean, the guy is a very nice guy. He had a fantastic job. He wasn't a surgeon. He was the guy that put you to sleep. And basic life. Probably doing better than I'd ever done, but I wasn't used to some of these things. I always stayed out because my mom didn't want me drinking and driving. And I wasn't used to coming back home. And all of these things, and it, and he was a Yankee. So I didn't really have the maturity to know how to deal with a Yankee. And the whole like family thing felt weird. So I was getting homesick, and I think we took some time off and came back home, and I got to running around, and then my family got mad at me for staying out for forever, longer than I should have. And eventually we got into a fight, and then my father was only like an hour away. So I ended up coming here, and we're here where I am now, and got into a world that I shouldn't have got into. And I made it. I made a lot of friends. People are very nice, and I've always visited here. I just never really knew a lot of the people here because I was always like on the weekends or when school let out. I've been here my whole life, but I've never like knew the people. So I graduated and about 120 pounds, probably 70 pounds light. And I said, what am I doing? I said, if I don't do something, I'm going to end up dead. And I wanted to go to college, but people don't believe in that I was raised with. So I started working like at the mill where you make $7 an hour, but you work 90 hours a week, and you're climbing up 200 foot in the air. You're doing insulation, and it's, for me that was great money, $500 a week. But you're working so much, and it's hard work. It ain't standing around. You're working all night long. And I said, this ain't gonna cut it. I said, this just ain't it. So I said, I've been thinking about the military for a long time. And I said, I need to figure out what I'm gonna do. I said, I don't want to be infantry or nothing. I want something that I can use. So I checked out the Navy, and eventually I met the recruiter and done really good on all the tests and stuff. I never really got bad grades until I started screwing around on a alternate universe. And so I shipped off January of 01. Got to boot camp, and it was, it's what it is. And this is something that's very funny and ironic. Do you know the song that I remember the most on the way to boot camp? War Pigs by Ozzy Osbourne. Now remind you, it's January 01. What happens 8 months later? That's just something I always remember. So I got out of boot camp, went to my school, done real good and all that. I showed up on the West Coast. I was Westpac. I don't even know if I'm allowed to tell you where I was. Well, I think the boat ain't even exist no more. But we were on the boat where it says 9/11, let's roll, spelled out on the boat. Just look it up, you'll see all the things on it. Because of the guy that turned over the plane in Flight 94 or whatever, he said, let's roll. And that's when they turned the plane over. That was the boat I was on. So we done a 9-month deployment, and I think we come back in like 02, and we were going to do repairs and stuff. And I went through there really fast. I made E4 in like less than 2 years, which is really pretty quick. Done real good on all my reviews. I was almost perfect in all my reviews. I fit in there like a glove. Everybody used to call me Admiral in boot camp because they said, "Hey man, you're gonna do something in here," because it was just easy, because it's your life is so simplified in there. And but me being the dumb butt I am, whenever something is a challenge, I always, as long as I've got a challenge and I stay busy, I'm fine. But once I get that and get into the groove and kind of take that down, I start wondering. Another reason that I chose the Navy is because I wanted to do special warfare. But I was thinking about it, and I said, well, if I ever want to do it, then I can just choose that. And I was like, I really just don't want to do this, because I signed 5 years. Because I don't care who you talk to, any contract you sign with the military is an 8-year contract. If you sign 3 years active, you're going to do 5 inactive, which means you don't get paid, you don't have to do anything, but they're allowed to call you up for 5 years. If you would do a 6-year contract, they're allowed to call you up for 2 years after you leave. So I signed a 5-year, and I got like a bonus or something. So whenever I made E4, I went out partying, done something I was supposed to, and I popped on a test. So they have a thing where they have to they have to take action. So they started my, discharge papers. And, I kind of felt like they might have let me stay. I would have been nothing for the rest of the time in there for probably 2 years. But, you're looked at with shame. You feel very small. You just want out, you want to go to the next thing, and it was just a mistake, that's what it was. And I can't do anything, that was over 20 years ago. So I didn't get my GI Bill. I was like just this close of having good conduct. I was just that close of short of it. So I got out, screwed around for a while, met someone. She had a kid. We're still together. And went from job to job to job, and then about 07, 08, I had a job here. It was a really good job, especially for here. And I believe Mr. Obama was in. Yeah, he was. And it was about the housing crisis. And I'd been thinking about going and getting a trade. And I said, well, I don't want to just be jumping job to job to job to job. And this is another thing. Since I was in high school, there was something going on, and I felt this, and I don't want to get off on this other street because I might touch on it. I've touched on it in past videos. But like whenever I was like going through high school by myself, there was just these odd things that were happening, like people shouting out things, people saying to my friend, "Oh, I know who he is," being pulled over by the cops when I wasn't doing anything then, but the cops didn't know me. I wasn't ever that guy, not then. No, that was very early. I was never known. I was never going around doing or distributing things, but it was just odd. It was like I would drive over to someone's house, and they weren't a person that was a known anything either. Mind you, I'm like 16, and the only money I'm getting is from, support from my father, and it was supposed to be to my mother, and I'm not doing anything, and but it was just odd. There was just a feeling, and I always knew who Christ was. I used to pray to him and tell him, but I don't think I was saved then. It was just someone I prayed to, but I knew he was Jesus. I knew he died on the cross and all that. And even when I was in the military, strange things were going on, but especially once I got out, it was like all of these things. And some of that could be the Patriot Act. Someone could be, the mistakes I made. I embarrassed myself, my country, and the commitment that I chose. There's a lot of things to it. But and then once I'd go to work, it was like once a couple of weeks or a month, I just get these side eyes, and it's just, and it took a long time to realize, was that something? And I don't know what it was, but even when I got the job here, I was working at a lumber mill. They called me, and I went in there and checked the phone because, mind you, then it was caller ID. There wasn't. I think there were cell phones, but there wasn't like now. And I looked on the caller ID. I said, and I looked in the phone book. I said, "Oh, that's them. Hey, all right." It took them like a month later to actually call me back and get an interview. And I was like, even then, it just touches on my brain, And so, anyway, I applied for welding school. I started going through that. Eventually, got run off from the sawmill because I wanted it, and had a mishap going on at the same time. That, you know, what can you do? You know, and and so um um so let me back up. So I was wanting to go to welding school, or I got into that. I was working and going, and then eventually, the housing crisis fell apart. All of that went on. So I eventually got done with that, started doing the construction thing, and then screwed up again. Went through a lot of pre-trial stuff, and then about like a diversionary program, and then in about 11 or 12 I started. That was kind of like whenever I started really looking into, like, because I heard about all these things about, because maybe I was too young or didn't know or hadn't been really working long enough or being in the world long enough. But God wakes you up. God always wakes you up, and He'll do anything to do it. Started looking into the conspiratorial side of things, Masonry, Gnosticism, all of these different religions. Just the Patriot Act was a big one, and then all these branches off the Patriot Act, all these private security and surveillance. And so I'm just slowly just drifting, because whenever you're working, busy, all of these things, you're consumed with so much. And like now, there's a lot of people at home, busted, not able to do much. And I think that we're just filling our minds and our time up with that. But back then, people were touching on it. And then YouTube was, it was YouTube. There was all kinds of things on YouTube. There wasn't no censorship at all back then. And and I still have the Bible that I've had for 30 years. My mother bought it for me. And a guy that I worked with before I left at the mill, he lost his life. I was going through a very hard time, trying to hang on at the place, trying to juggle this, trying to juggle that, and just a lot of things were weighing down, and that was a tough time too. But like I said, I back then I might pray a prayer or look in there for something that just God talk to me. I need a sentence, a verse, whatever. I was like a one verse person, And I barely made it through, but I made it, And sometimes that's what you're asking for. I just need 5 more minutes. And he's always delivered. And about that time, there was some very strange things going on. I don't want to get off on the conspiratorial too much on it, but there were some things going on. And I don't know. I don't want to put suspicions or whatever out there about it, because I don't know, and I will never know. Probably I'll never know the truth, but I don't really think it matters. But I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of like certain things that can put vibrations and things in your mind, and all that's got Satanism all behind it. It was pretty tough. And so that was that was about time I went to school in like 10 or 11. I ended up getting done with that in 11. Done okay with it, but even then it was like I'd ask for help and they were like coming over there trying to just juggle me up, and I was like, yeah, it was better before I even asked for help, and it was, I mean, like then, like it's just been this progression, and my suspicions have just, and I'm 99% sure that it ain't nothing. But like I said, what can you do? You'll never know. I'll never know the truth. We'll never know the truth about most of the things that have went on. I think the world is just so broken and so downtrodden, and there are people that want it so bad. They want to see it because they know the people that have worked on it before them. And just like we feel honored, I feel very honored that I think I'm going to see the return of Christ, and I don't want understand. I don't think any Christian wants the world to end, but I want it to be in my day because I know I'm built for it. I know I'm not built. I'm the most capable because I don't see the world getting better. So I want to see it because I know if there's any kind of shield to the ones that I love around me, that just, hey, just a word, a voice. How many people can go out and camp and light a fire and cut firewood and know how to survive? Not much. We're pretty much the last one. So if I asked Father, I said, please let me just survive to make it or whatever, because I don't want it. I mean, understand, I'm not a person that wants people to fail. I don't want my government to fail. I don't want that. But if it does happen, because I know that I'm built for it in these days. I'm built for it because of all. And like I said, if God's done me a favor, it's been this progression. And I'm not going to get into the particulars of it because it's a lot worse. It's a lot worse. So in like 13, I made another mistake and went through a diversionary program. Got sent up to the city. And, like I've done really well, turned everything around, And, all that got wiped clean because of that program. And, the whole time I'm just, even then, that gave me a lot of time to be with God, and I had my Bible in there. So I'm reading it. I'm not understanding it like I have now, but I think that was building a base. It was building just somewhat of a foundation, And that was around 15. And like I said, I'll never go off of it. I'll never waver. I believe the 2020 for a lot of the South was 15. Because I seen a lot of the world going into the private side of things. I seen a lot of our laws and stuff going that way. And like I said, these people aren't dumb. They know when this stuff is coming. And a lot of these secret societies, a lot of these people that are in these cliques, they know when this stuff's coming. That they're prepared for it because they've always known. They know when it's going to crash. They know when it's going to fluctuate. And they know about it for all we do, because so all this funding and all this stuff for these small businesses and all this stuff, who do you think that money goes for first? Not the poor, for the prepared. And God does bless people. I'm not taking that away. I'm talking about wicked money. I've never been a person that's like, hey, I need this or that. I never have been. I want to work for it and get it and that. But like, this is what I see. And that's the problem with this collectivism. Because if a handful of people, are saying, this, or I'm going to exercise my free speech, it takes it out on the collective. And how do you think they're going to keep the arrows off of them, off of the people that are really the people that worship Satan, the people that want the fall? They're going to accuse probably Christians and people that are saying, no, that's not cool. Y'all do it if y'all want to, but not me. Because that's bringing us all into the fold, and that's saying, you're the reason why our community is bad. You're the reason why we're having to not we're having to send our people here or there, or we're not able to have this or that, or this place or that. You are. No, I didn't set up the system. I don't have that much power. My father said be separate. And that's just my gist on the 15. So after 15, I got the welding thing down pat. It took a long time for it, because when Obama, during Obama's first term, like, I'd hit a job and it would be a couple of months, just enough to get by on and come back home, because when you're doing what I was doing, which is called contract labor, you put a lot of it in your pocket, and you're like, okay, so when we're done here, whenever I go home or go somewhere else, I've got to have that to live on. And that's the way it works there, because you don't know when you're going to get the next call. And then in his second term, work was blowing up. Work was really, really blowing up. It was awesome during his second term. I mean, I made a lot of money during his second term. But I then again, you see what I'm saying? I think that was all a distraction, because I know a lot of people, they were like, man, I'm getting phone calls all the time. I think it was a distraction. And we were probably doing a lot of the things that are being relied on and upgrading it now. I that's what I think. I don't know. So 16, 17, 18, I had my daughter in 11. So, and then even my stepson, I saw things happening with him. Was it because of me, or was it just the way of the world? I don't know. But I believe that, people ought to leave families alone and let us do our thing, And so in 18, about I think Trump got elected 16, so he got sworn in 17. And I was big on the Trump train, And about a year later, I was like, man, things are really just, I don't know if they're as they seem, I was really questioning the world. I was praying. I wasn't a perfect person, but I was really praying. I used to have my Bible on the dash whenever I was going here or there. I was praying. I was looking at things. I was looking at, I was really, really into conspiracies and stuff. And I was just like, man, are we just, is the deception just growing and growing? And I kind of just said, man, I just don't think politics is it, And I think that was God saying, you need to come on over, bud, full-fledged. And things were awful. Things got awful for me personally. I know everybody's like, hey, it's economy. Great, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, to me, things were awful. Little petty, little childish, little bullcrap games was going on everywhere I went. People were breaking into my stuff. I had a camper, they were breaking into that. I mean, it was terrible. It was awful. There was stress going. I mean, I kept a level of anxiety and stress that just, and that's just God just saying, hey, just prepare, and I mean, maybe it's prepared, maybe it was preparing me for salvation, but even after that, so eventually 19 came, and this is, they had the whole China, blah, blah, blah story, they said, and a bunch of us are standing around the toolbox, and we just, we're just talking, there was 3 of us, and we all kind of run together, and we were all welders too, so we were all just bull crapping and stuff, and I just kind of popped off. I said, man, I think there's going to be a sickness or a disease come March or April. And I see now that they've been watching me and listening to me all the time. I mean, people would walk around the job and have their cell phone right here, and then they'd put it on my toolbox, sitting there recording us. And I'm like, what are these people doing? We're paid to work, not to sit here and like record people. And it was so weird. It was very, very weird. And I just, just kind of blow it off, because then I had a lot of armor on, or I was starting to get it on then, and I mean, it's just, you really don't know how much you can take once you've taken so much. And I think the week or the week after that, I got laid off. So I mean, it's just kind of, put two and two together. I mean, it don't make five. But and I said I was really talking to God then, and just I mean, I don't think I was saved, because that comes here in a minute. And I just kind of had a discussion, and he said, "This is it. You'll never weld again." And I said, "Yeah," and I didn't. I welded a little bit in 2020, because I was working at like a little raggedy place, because they had to do a little trash weld on something. But like me, I do what they call code welding, where it's to specs, and it all has to be, this has to be right, your pre-work has to all be right and everything, and then they shoot it and all that stuff. I done a lot of that, and some where you just stick it together, but most of it's like that. The places with the good wage. But that was just him just saying it. And I think I got called for one more job back then, and I was like, okay, well, went and passed everything. And as soon as I got to the next town, fixed to get on the freeway, what did they do? They called me, said, hey, you can work as a tool, what I can't even remember the term. Say, it's been so long. What do they call the tool person? Oh, you can work in the tool room. And then you're like, hey, I got all my stuff. I'm gonna go up there and do this, And I was like, whatever. I know y'all are just playing little petty little punk games. So I said no, and went on, and by October of 19, I was all kinds of crap going on, all kinds. And I was about at my wit's end, and in October of 19, I said, Father, I can't take it anymore. I said, it's too much for me. And I was praying, I was reading the Bible, and I used to just drive my truck around, because the world was that heavy. The statue of the guy that has the world on his back, I felt like I had two of them on mine. It was too much. I would lay in bed for a week, just because it was all being stripped down. It was all being taken from me. But in October, I think it was the Monday before Halloween, or the day before Halloween. I think it was the Monday of the Halloween in 19. I think that's the day. I'm almost positive. I was driving by a place, and like I was being followed everywhere. That's what was happening. I was being followed everywhere. And I mean, not two people. They wanted to make it obvious. It was like 50 cars. And I'd turn somewhere, and 50 cars would follow me that way. And there's 5,002 people in this town. You don't think you can know when somebody's following you? You sure can. And all of a sudden, I was just praying and praying and praying, and something just broke. And nobody was following me. And I think that was what it was. And I pulled over on the side of the road right before you got in city limits down there. And I knelt down, and I said, everything I do from here on out It's because you died for my sins. And he just, the weight of the world was lifted off my back. And I knew I would never burn in hell. And that's what happened. And and people want to call me a liar when I say this. The world stopped. It stopped. And there was a man and a woman, and they was like parked right. They like pulled over, because I was home. You got to think, how screwed up do I look being on the ground with clutching my Bible on the ground, just like this, just knelt down on gravel with the door open. I fell out of the pickup, and I've got the door open, and I'm sitting there like this, and these people are like, they're sitting there on their cell phones, and they're going, "Hey, Landon needs help. Get him up here. He's crazy. Get his." And I said something, and I like took 2 or 3 steps, and I was rolling over, and I kind of rolled over, and I was like almost in the road, and I just looked up, and the world stopped, and I knew it. And to this day, I'll tell y'all, the world stopped. Every vehicle on that road stopped. Everything stopped, except for those 2 people, and they was going, "He's crazy, he's crazy, he's crazy." And and after that, it just like, I guess just that weight and everything, and everything just drew back like that, and like everything would just started everything just started rolling back again, like it, the world was. And I had threw my wallet, because I thought, because y'all gotta understand, I've always heard that the Schofield and the rapture and all that. I thought that's what it was. I thought I was being raptured, and I think, and I knew I was being, I knew I was saved then, but I thought that was kind of like a double, whatever. And I had that Bible, and I wanted to go knock on every door that there was, and tell them that they all needed to be saved. But I said, man, I got to get a grip, because, a lot of people have like described it when they got saved like this, but it's, but you just kind of, because it's everything was so overwhelming, and it's because there's a guy that come out of masonry, and when he got saved, it really resonated with me, because he said, God said, "Here, I'll take that." And that's what it felt like when I got saved. And from then on, it's just been it's been just get a little better, just get a little better, just get a little better. But I've lost it all. I mean, but I haven't lost anything. And that everybody that I've died, everything that I've lost, every mistake I've made has been leading me to that moment. And now I'm trying to do everything right, and I'm getting there, but I'm not there. And you can too. It doesn't matter, because He loved you before you were born. And we may not ever work, make another dollar. Our politician may not get elected. Things might not go our way socially, but we have a future. We have a future. This world doesn't have a future. This world is full of liars and greedy people that want to see chaos, want to see our neighborhoods burn, want to see their bank accounts grow. How much money do you need? That you could probably take 2 of these billionaires that call themselves elite and feed everybody in the world for probably a year. But no, they said, "Oh well, the market's going bad." Well, I don't see too much of the top 500 wealthiest people in the world. I don't see them doing bad. It's always the people at the bottom that suffer. But Christ said, I don't even have a verse. Christ said, "Come to me, all you who will." So come to him, because you have that choice. You can burn there, or you can live forever up there. Because it's not a child's story. It's not a fairy tale. Heaven's real, and hell's real. And you got to make that choice of you're gonna join him, or you're gonna burn. That's it. There's no gray area in this. You burn or you live. And he will help us. We may not eat at a buffet every day, and we might not drive the nicest vehicles, but he will be with us to the end. Even if it's bleak, he will be with us. And I guess I just need to end it right there. But take care, and y'all be safe. And I'm praying for y'all's family, and I'm praying that y'all all find salvation in Christ.